Cyberpunk 2077 is probably the most anticipated game of this decade, if not in the entire history of video games. The promise for a next generation of open world and the reputation of Witcher 3 turned this game into a sort of promised land, something that would change your life, or at least how many of people saw that after epic trailers and gameplay showcases. A promising, daring project in the niche genre, which release became the same heavily controversial as the big the expectations were. Some claim it to be the promised messiah, the best game in history, the gem, and others gave it about 2 out of 10, a buggy mess and disappointment of a decade. After trying it, I was stuck between similar uncertain emotions myself, and that's something we're about to figure out together in this video. You can call it both a game review, a historical excursus into the genre, and a free discussion at the same time, because all this is needed together in this tale of irony and greatness of Cyberpunk 2077. To start with, we need to make sure we understand what Cyberpunk genre is, because it did not start directly neither from the game released this year and not even from the board game it is based on. We're jumping back to a period between late 60s and early 70s, when a new wave science fiction appeared, experimenting with both content and form of writing. Being influenced by drastic changes in society and culture, authors like Roger Zelazny, James Graham Ballard, Philip Kindred Dick, John Brunner and few others implemented the impact of the drug culture, technology and sexual revolution into their books and novels, while excluding the classic utopian principles of science fiction. Later, a subgenre emerged from the new wave sci-fi, which was describing a world being a combination of two foundations, which seemed to be simply incompatible back then. A high-tech, which means the cutting edge of technologies, medicine, nuclear and quantum energy, industrial design and overall era of innovations. With a low life, a society riddled with criminals, drug dealers, hobos, freeloaders and gangsters, amping up the scamming, thievery and overall profanity. This combination was expanded by notes of punk culture and very early hacker culture. Lastly, the period of Great Divergence, which started in middle-late 1970s and marked a fast growth of difference in income between majority of people and the lesser percentage of them, and the rise of corporations, has laid its mark on sci-fi authors as well, and dystopian motifs were often started to be added as a general part of setting. Cyberpunk takes sci-fi and makes it closer and easier to feel, darker, more frightening, and while still the futuristic, closer to reality of modern human nature and questions of its substance. This is how Cyberpunk was born in early 1980s, and is still alive and developing from 1980s to the last years. Blade Runner, Ghost in the Shell, Akira, Neuromancer, Technolize, The Matrix, Creatures of Light and Darkness, Judge Dredd, Ergo Proxy, Cowboy Bebop and Psychopath. Varying from 38 up to just being a couple years old, all these titles majorly represent Cyberpunk, and if you saw or read a few of them, Cyberpunk 2077 is a setting you will be definitely interested in, and if not, but you are about to enter Cyberpunk genre yourself, the very same titles is a short list of essentials kindly recommended to look at. Cyberpunk 2077 is based on a tabletop role-playing game called just Cyberpunk, which has several publications and is usually referred to the second Cyberpunk 2020 released in 1990 or the fourth Cyberpunk Red released in 2020 and serving as a lore prequel to the video game to avoid these confusions with the name of the game and the name of the genre itself. It exists within its own fictional timeline, which splits from the real world in the 1990. The timeline has been extended with the each major edition of the game, from the first edition set in 2013 to Cyberpunk Red set in 2045. Major events have included the collapse of the global superpowers and the rise of the megacorporations that fight amongst themselves for dominance. Food blights have caused disastrous famines, and by the late 1990s, the Middle East turned into a radioactive desert. The bioengineering, against the backdrop of a warfare, has resulted in the rapid development of cybernetic prosthetics and direct human-machine interfaces. With the lack of government and police, casual violence became endemic. Many also suffer from so-called technoshock, an inability to cope with a world of synthetic muscle tissue, organic circuits and designer drugs. Following the great economic collapse sometime during the early 21st century, the United States of America is simply forced to rely on megacorporations in order to survive. These corporations deal in a wide range of areas, such as weapons, robotics, cybernetics, pharmaceuticals, communications and biotechnology. And most of them operate above the law, not afraid of the world governments. The events of 2077 are taking place already after Fourth Corp War, the massive conflicts between megacorporations, each one claiming the pinnacle of influence and power. The main location for Cyberpunk is the fictional Night City, situated on the west coast of the United States between Los Angeles and San Francisco, and obviously has the city's architecture and urban design influence, as well as Tokyo design influence, especially districts like Shibuya, due to Japanese megacorporation Arasaka, basically being city's biggest patron, which protects yet curates almost everything in it. With a population of almost 7 million people during the video game timeline, it presents a stratified society of gang warfare, corporate rivalries, and political machinations in which the players have to survive. The character creation of the tabletop game has three basic principles, which need to be mentioned as they have the further influence on the video game. Style over substance, attitude is everything, and always take it to the edge. In the Night City, society embraced body modification, cybertech and bioengineering as something not to become special, but a direct way to survival and self-expression, where such terms as ridiculous, strange, over-sexualized or irrational are heavily washed out, and the most artistic, weird and just crazy look of human body became a daily routine and a part of the culture. There are 10 key roles in the game. This includes charismatic musicians, rocker boys, bodyguards and assassins, solos, computer hackers, netrunners, the road warriors called nomads, street experts, fixers, investigative journalists and reporters, medias, mechanics, the techs or techies, the doctors, medtechs, corporate executives and police officers, all of which are presented in the video game itself, while the builds of V, the protagonist of the game and your character, wraps around Solo, the combat-oriented merc, and Netrunner, hacker. Note that this does not mean there are only two classes in the video game, it is just a reference to roleplay aspect and the system position of V. One of factions, Rocker Boys, plays major role in the game as well, as they are rebel musicians but sometimes also other street performers, poets, activists and even politicians, who use music, popularity in crowds and revolt to fight authority of the megacorps. One of the legendary rocker boys, Johnny Silverhand, will play a crucial part in the story of video game and be directly or indirectly related with many backstories and the side quests in the game too. Cyberpunk 2077 event starts here, and so I'm going to the game review part of the video. It is divided into several sections, every of which, together with the other ones, you can quickly access using the navigation straight in the video, should you want to rewind something. The classic system where a maximum of 10 points can be given to the game in the end of the review will be handled in the next way here. Initially, game has 10 points, which means a potentially near to perfectly done game in every of its core parts. During the review though, I will be adding or deducting points where a certain part of the game is done, let's say, so well it beats anything on the market for a level above, or vice versa, terribly bad, up to +1 or -1 points respectively, or let's say there will be some non-critical but noticeable cons. Here I can deduct a half or a quarter point, etc. And in this way I will proceed through every important game aspect and sum up the total game score. Let's start. Visual aesthetics, world design and depth. The first principle of Cyberpunk board game, style over substance, pretty much describes the nature of Cyberpunk 2077 in terms of visual design, be it the architecture or the common citizen's look. The city views are so mesmerizing that I spent around 10 hours out of 100 totally played in a photo mode and had to rebind screenshot button on mouse 4. The world of Night City made by CD Projekt Red developers simply knocked me down. First 5 hours I didn't do a single quest besides the prologue and just ran around the city districts, climbed the walls, buildings, warehouses, radio towers and the hell ever else. Each city district has distinct look. The buildings of the sleeping areas are filled with soft advertising signs and neon. Ghettos are painted with street art which looks from a masterpiece to something drawn by a 5-year-old kid. Business areas are riddled with humongous mega-corporation buildings and bewitching holograms with the size of a 3-floor building themselves. Tiny, overcrowded marketplaces, huge bridges, skyscrapers, dirty buildings with the most poor living miserable life inside, abandoned metal carcasses with hobbies in them, underground clubs, warehouses and clinics. I can actually count for a minute long from that. The interior style perfectly matches the exterior style. Everything is worked out to every last detail and often just beyond you could even imagine. Literally each time you turn your head around, your gaze catches something which takes your attention for a few moments. The amount of details is an additional mention. The streets, skies, outskirts and undergrounds of Night City are not just made looking amazingly well. They are so detailed you can sometimes play a find the scene game, looking at the same place and finding a new details each time your eyes run through. The toxic city adds with dozens of changing contents, different vending machines, which actually work and have incredibly detailed models, different urns for different types of techno waste, the shop fronts each actually having dozens of different clothes or weapons or food with unique fully made models, unique design elements in each district, aircrafts flying in the skies above the city, trash, empty cans, flyers, cigarette butts and pieces of implants ripped out in some city brawl or abduction. The same applies to NPCs, clothing, vehicles and even weapons. It is really hard to find two same dressed NPCs, even on the crowded center square with over 200 people around. Square-wise, territory of Cyberpunk 2077 is about 2.5 times less compared to Witcher 3 for example, but the existence of vertical levels in the game and overall depth of the world, how you can explore heavily balances this in new interesting way. There is almost always something besides just one level. Shops on the ground level, weapon traders and junk market below the ground level, net running goods and just living quarters on 1, 2 or even more levels above ground level. The horizontal territory is barely a 30% of what's actually available for you to explore due to vertical level design. You can actually climb every surface you see as long as your physical capabilities allows that, and needless to say you can improve these capabilities. Climb the ladders of warehouses, roofs of buildings, jump in between crates, lurk down below into basements, jump from balconies to window sills and small ledges on radio towers, walk the pipes just above the road traffic, and of course to use all that for your tactical advantage in combat, but a bit later about this. No, you cannot do something absolutely crazy like using your mantis blades to stick them into the walls and climb the 50th floor of skyscrapers, but the thing is, with the astonishing level of design in the available amount of world space, both horizontally and vertically, your capabilities for exploration are just as great as you may want them. Animations. As almost a lifetime Elder Scrolls and Fallout series player, animations is something I always pay extreme attention to, craving for them being done well after an outdated mess each Bethesda game has. The animations, aside from the incredibly rare cases they glitch, I had maybe like 10 animation glitches in over 100 hours of walkthrough, are almost a piece of art. NPC animations varies depending on gender, age, health condition and even potential character of the person. Fat NPCs are walking leisurely, waddling. Gang members are walking aggressively like everyone should empty the road for them. Elderly or sick people walk hunched over. Rich citizens in fancy jacket walk in elegant, arrogant manner. Anger, fear, panic animations, it's all there. But there is more. Like here I'm having a conversation about some next level danger mission. You can see my companion leg twitching nervously. Just blew up the enemy netrunner brains. Her body will be all in micro convulsions. Weapons animations are not less eccentric. Shooting, aiming, reloading, many times per second, even the tiniest parts of your weapon work, move and sparkle. Sometimes I've emptied a few clips in a row into thin air just to see the reload animation again. It is simply one of the best combinations of motion capture work and the handmade animations I have ever seen. Ray tracing. Shortly said, this game has simply the best actual gameplay implementation of ray tracing currently existing in video games industry. This game is meant to be played with ray tracing. It adds brand new level of visual pleasure and it's actually pretty well optimized, knowing how fresh this technology still is. To summarize here, the visual aesthetics, graphics quality, and world building depths are literally something that can be easily called the next gen. No existing game in cyberpunk genre can surpass but come even remotely close to the beauty of the cyberpunk world this game has created. Plus one solid point. The total amount of dialogue lines is nowhere close to a game like Witcher 3. You cannot just stop by one of the main characters and spend like 10 minutes to exhaust currently available dialogue lines. At the same time, the amount of writing that exists, the dialogue lines that exist, main quests, many side quests, character backstories and additional lines, they are written greatly. Listening to people or reading some info shards often makes you truly empathize, and that's the most serious grade player can give to dialogues and narration. The main storyline is developing quickly and draws you from one deadly situation to another and revealing more and more about the Night City, corporations and of course Johnny Silverhand, who plays a major role in the game and your own life. It would be almost impossible to describe the quality level of main storyline without major spoilers, so I will just say that CD Projekt Red absolutely kept their own storyline standards. Just do not expect the story to be wrapped around the very same aspects as The Witcher 3. It is different and that's how it should be. If The Witcher 3 main storyline is about love and the principle of lesser evil, Cyberpunk 2077 is about the destiny and substance of a human being, about what price you will to pay for climbing to the top of the world. It is also a story of the most unexpected friendship ever. CD Projekt Red managed to truly reproduce the absurdity and utterly unpredictable aspects of human life, where your whole world can shatter in a moment. Characters are complex and memorable, and Keanu Reeves simply mastercrafted Johnny's character perfectly, made it as real as it would happen in your own head. And not because, oh god, it's Keanu, let's fab, yet because how believable he played it, lived it, and the amazing tandem of visuals and animations only makes it more real. Cyberpunk 2077 storyline left me, a 30-years-old dude who went through an actual revolution and war in own country, in tears, and I was not able to stop them for a while. The feeling of tension, the emotional baggage which storyline carefully built inside me just exploded during its culmination, and there are just a few games during my whole life which achieved the same. As for non-linear part of the storyline, it is as great as the writing itself. The game has 5 different endings depending on your actions during the game, your relationships with Johnny and some other characters, and many situations can be went through not even just 2 different ways, but sometimes 4 or even 5 different ways, and some tiny choices which are not even marked in the main tasks can affect the outcome of absolutely different side quests dozens of gameplay hours later, and the side quests can affect the main storyline outcome in return. As for Johnny Silverhand, he is involved not only in the main story but also side quests as well, and his character and commentaries add a whole additional dimension to majority of secondary quests in the game, often making you to look on the situation from a brand different angle and rethink your choices. Attention, minor side quest spoilers will be present now, yet it's nothing critical, and if you want to understand this review part fully, it is recommended to watch them. So there is a certain job where you need to find out an old friend of the fixer, an intermediate between mercs and the clients, a veteran journalist, and convince him to go with you. He is in danger as he dug too much on corporations and assassins are looking for him. The moment you find him, he will be scared and sitting with the gun to his head and telling you not to get closer. If you are a corpo, besides regular lines in attempt to convince him, you have a corpo faction line, after which he instantly blows his brain out and the quest basically fails. First I was like, what the hell? But then I realized this thing, how modern RPGs handle the faction or attribute related additional dialogue lines. We are so used to the fact such lines always mean either a good quest ending or at least some benefit that we often click them blindly. But not here. After I loaded my save and read through the lines, it was just obvious why he suicided. Point here is, he is a journalist who is hiding from corpos, obviously he will not trust a corpo and something in your answer just push him to the line. That's how a true RPG dialogue should be handled, and that's damn great. Yet all the RPGs we have played last years would surely turn this outcome into something good, so you would somehow magically make him believe you with this line, because the dumb it down additional line always good principle. With the side quests in general, CDPR once again proves their unique talent to write small breathtaking side stories which can completely take you away with masterfully made setting, characters and, in case of Cyberpunk 2077, also visual effects. Besides everything, game has a huge amount of notes, emails and various sort of records you can find which describe the lore of the world or just some dramatic dark stories, and you can stumble across them just by reading emails on a laptop and some poor fella killed by scavengers. For side quests themselves, you can sometimes take absolutely generic job like steal their blueprints, which 20 minutes later will develop into you being thrown into a mega corporation conspiracy plot, or detective story involving some neo-Mason organization which can take you hours to finish, or vice versa. You can stumble across some ridiculous 5-minute quests about some cyber monks or a dude with overheated dick implant, which will completely crack you up. You can discuss your jobs and latest events with other people via in-game messenger or calls, receive messages from your friends trolling you or love partners saying they miss you and so on. This only improves the overall immersion. Generic jobs are the majority in this game, but this feels surprisingly realistic and fun at the same time. Knowing your character work type, good character writing and various small notes pointing on details of even small events happened which you can uncover during these jobs. As the main storyline is something incredibly rare in its quality, RPG aspects affecting gameplay are highly numerous and many side quests can totally throw you into fear, tears or hysterical laughter, with non-linear outcomes as well. There could be also a better ratio between generic and non-generic jobs in total, so I'm adding a medium over-the-top bonus here, half a point. Which means everything about the story is an absolute must-play, outstanding work capable of emotionally hit you like a truck very often, and the RPG aspects are done incredibly well. Immersion and world interactivity. I remember how game trailers heavily confused me with this vibrant, iridescent look of Night City which in my head contradicted the high-tech, low-life principle of Cyberpunk. Oh man, how much wrong I was. With each minute spent in game, with each job done, you understand what Night City really is. Like a flickering flashlight on the forehead of a giant anglerfish, this fake, illusory look of happiness wraps the true cyberpunk world of 2077, with grim ambience and terrible, atrocious things happening in it. Terrible so much that sometimes those virtual reality traders filming rapes and children dismemberment start looking like not the worst bastards in town, and the idea of having a terrorist who killed thousands of people as a friend looks not a half bad. All the joy is hidden in greedy claws of corporate elites, and you are deep below down there, have to deal with the Night City reality, because otherwise it will break you. This cruel, techno-fanatic, deceiving dystopian world embraces you and doesn't let you go. As for the world itself in terms of feeling of presence, just detailed is probably not enough to describe it. You can be walking your way to the next mission and see rival gangs shooting, or a conflict between a gang and the police. You can see NPCs drinking, puking after drinking, discussing some news or gossips, bargaining, friends sparring in chrome brawling, couples arguing over cheating, etc. You can exit your apartments and overhear a police squad ramming into some drunkard door, or a gang member listening to a plea of a few poor citizens promising to help them. Going through a marketplace and hear some weird dude shouting he will rate the bookstore 0 out of 10 in app because shopkeeper was rude to him. You may see a new Reaper Dog NPC in clinic after some time in game, and ask her where did the last one go, or meet a homeless conspiracy theorist who sometimes gathers a crowds with his BS and people around filming him on phones or laughing at him. The various ads about drinks, food or implants you can hear are so viral that I realized they stuck into my head the same way silly TV ads in real life do. Enemies viciously laugh and comment when they injure you. And speaking about languages, game brings an amazing multicultural experience, as an idol talks, in combat and basically any time when you do not directly talk to someone in English. NPCs are using all languages: French, Russian, Japanese, Spanish and so on. I once had an absolutely beautiful moment when I managed to trigger 2 different gangs at once, and while they were covering me with lead, one gang was cursing at me in Russian while other in French. You can go through the park or crowded city streets and notice a relaxed dude just playing the guitar. And I mean it, it is not just an NPC with sitting animation with music sound. He actually plays it, not only with proper hands and finger animations, but performing proper chords. Your enemies' dismembered bodies vary the same as the types and degree of their implants usage can be. Some look just like regular humans with prosthetic arms, some like half machines with wires sparkling out from exploded heads, someone's blood is red, someone's blue or white, some don't even look like humans anymore, resembling a dispatched Terminators or combat sex dolls from your kinky-ass horror sleeps. The world is alive and asks you to explore it. You can parkour to your heart's content as mentioned before, interfere to gang shootings, find some abducted people in containers, or see local goons trying to rob a coffee shop, while this area is not even marked as a point of interest on map, and it will be your call what to do. You can interact with vending machines, computers, screens, cameras, break into the cars, beat the owner and ride far away, break the building windows, break the dishes, food and drinks, boxes, ads and signboards, and if it is a milk packet, it will explode with a white liquid. Interactive items have respective properties towards other objects. For example, most of electric devices, like laptops or microwaves, can be hacked and so used in combat or stealth. But if you will explode, let's say, a fuel tank near such object, it will be destroyed too and become useless piece of junk. You can scan everything: tech, inanimate objects and people. Vending machine screen will glitch as you punch it. Glass bottles rolling down from the box will break if have enough inertia or height, and will not break if fall with very slow speed. You can also hack the wide amount of objects and structures, which often leads to absolutely hilarious in a good meaning combination of the hack and the resulted physics. As for your own leisure, you can get drunk, you can rest, shower, hire a prostitute of any gender and implant sit-up, watch sex tapes and of course, die from enemy shooting straight into the car fuel tank near you. And yes, you can pet a cat. At the same time, physics quality is pretty double-edged. First of all, it often works not how you expected it to be. This mostly applies to vehicles and rarely to jumping physics and NPCs' deaths. It sometimes glitches. Some objects have physics which is really bad or does not exist at all. For example, water surface. Shooting in the water, mashing it with katana, your bullets and blade just going through it as it would be a thin air. Zero collision and something like 9 years old Skyrim water looks better here. Or you can break almost every glass and window in the buildings until it is not a bulletproof one, which can happen, but you can't break a car windows or deal noticeable scratches and damage to vehicles with your weapons. You can only completely blow them up. If you hit a water crane with your car, it will break and water fountain will shoot into the air, but will doing so going through your car, and water fountain will not have any physics should you try stepping on it. There are some other cases like that which makes physics and interactivity really enjoyable experience sometime and natural disappointment other. The NPC chatters and leisure is often repetitive or just the same. That dude near a journal store saying he will leave 0 ratings, he will be saying same scene 24/7 no matter where you pass by. Many interesting background talks and arguments between NPCs only happen once when you first visit the place, and then they just don't talk at all. Most of traders in those tiny, incredibly atmospheric street food kiosks are not interactable. You cannot talk to them or buy this food from them. It is understandable that in a huge open-world game like this, amount of work to provide a deep conversations and interaction system to all generic NPCs requires insane amount of time, but still, this sometimes strikes the eye and it could be done better. -quarter point. Skills, abilities and gameplay variability. Cyberpunk 2077 offers such a wide amount of ways to solve the problems that it's mostly limited only by your own fantasy. In the very same mission you almost always can blind your enemies, bust in their sensors and just walk around them, distract them by hacking a radio nearby so they would go away to check the noise and then break their necks. Break through some adjacent door by either hacking its lock with a tech skill or literally breaking it with body skill and taking a shortcut path, avoiding enemies completely. Kill or disable them with chokes, aerial strikes, throwing knives, silenced pistols, shooting electromagnetic waves through walls, and then hide their corpses into boxes, urns, or just dark corners so the others will not find them and rise alert. Install a leg muscles implant and use a double jumps to reach your pipes just under the roof and sneak about the enemies' heads, or shooting them from above using your sniper rifle or muzzled Uzi, opening yet another way that was inaccessible for you without an implant. Heck, if you have some really developed hacking skills and needed implants, you can turn off all cameras to not get spotted, hijack the turrets so they attack own allies, explode their vehicles, and then finish the couple of gravely injured enemies who still have no idea what's going on. Or you can just throw a damaging virus hack, which will jump to other enemies in a huge radius and melt everyone's brain in an instant. Some other implant will allow you to jump from high spots with such force you'll land like a Hulk, throwing dust clouds and knockbacking enemies around. You can just ram and deal with everyone in old good fashion with a revolver, machine gun or katana, or you can use non-lethal methods on enemies. Yes, you can actually go through whole game without killing anyone as a true pacifist. Use your scanning hack on an enemy guarding the building outside to reveal the rest of his allies' position through walls. Then climb the ladder to the roof, silently break one of roof's windows with a muzzled pistol and shoot half of the enemies from this position before others will realize they are screwed. Slow time and shoot head-blowing precise headshot from your techno revolver, or fire a homing shotgun barrages of toxic bullets which will fly around the corner and still headshot the enemy. Take control over a camera on enemy base and then jump between different cameras to get all the vision you need and applying quick hacks from these cameras while hiding yourself unnoticed at a huge distance. Melee assortment of deadly weapons does not end on katanas. It is also knives, clubs, mantis blades ejecting from your arms in a Wolverine style, and a laser wires that can silently slice a neck in an armor like a butter. There is no level scaling, no this regular RPG feature of enemy will be not too hard and not too easy, just as hard as it needed to be killed without issues, no such stuff here. If you go to some of most terrible gang district at level 5, you'll be annihilated no matter what, yet goons from most weak district will be a mere joke to you on level 30. This is more like classic RPGs handle that, and that's great, as it gives much better feeling of your character progression. Bosses in the game have good variability, they are not just spongy analogs of regular bandits, but often have own unique abilities. Can jump enormous heights, become invisible, teleport, or just equip a mecha suit and turn into a dumb Terminator. Sometimes you find yourself in a hazardous surroundings which you can or cannot neutralize. There are 5 attributes, 12 skills and over 230 perks in the game, and with dozens of different weapons and implants in addition, you can literally build your character into anything you want. A brutal minigun Terminator with insane regeneration, gunslinger or sniper, techno ninja with katana or mantis blades, sneaky assassin who can use a wide assortment of silent tools. From classic muzzled pistols to laser wires and deadly viruses which can order enemy to commit suicide. A deadly hacker who will never need to use weapon in first turn, or after all a complete pacifist who will be able to deal with any enemy in multiple ways without killing it. Note that there is no strict class system in the game and you can always make a hybrid build mixing up the most different tools and abilities. The depth and complexity of locations themselves directly intertwines with your playstyle. This game makes a really rare and amazingly well implemented case of world design being not just a beautiful picture, but being directly used to add a brand new level of gameplay variability. Game also uses hybrid experience system, a mix between classic finish quest get XP and you get XP for what you do, kinda like it was for skills in Skyrim. You receive one attribute and one perk points at level up, but you can also receive perk points and various small bonuses when you rise your skills by using them, be it hacking, shooting or jumping. This is quite an engaging combination. While the game provides huge amount of perks to choose from, many of them are pretty generic, being the type of inflict X more damage with this weapon in that condition, or have X% faster move speed or regeneration in this condition. There are actually unique dynamic perks, like one allowing you to perform aerial takedowns in stealth skills, or the one which gives double damage to the last bullet and revolver clip, not just a static bonus per damage, but something which is actually looking cool or adding depth to roleplay at the same time. But such perks are not dominant in total amount. Another moment is some perks are just utterly disbalanced and sometimes just don't work. Same applies for a couple of implants like Camille Ram Manager for example, such as Soft on Your Feet perk. Invest 3 perk points to reduce fall damage on 20% only. In this game, fall damage, when it doesn't glitch and you die from jumping over a bike, is pretty high, so 20% reduction makes virtually no difference in all those cases when you would die from falling, and moreover, investing 3 perk points into it makes it plainly worthless. Or when taking perks which greatly reduces recoil and shaking with sniper rifles, which is, as you can guess, crucial for a sniper build. It sometimes just stops working and rifles shakes like you have no perks at all. Stealth, both as skill and a game mechanic, is incredibly overpowered. You can sneak to enemy almost from the side during a broad daylight and he most likely will not notice you. And that's with 0 stealth skills. Sound often is not taken into consideration at all. If NPC turned its back to you, you can literally sprint towards him and crouch barely a few inches before taking him down. He will not react. The last thing which requires balance is a critical damage modifiers. At the beginning you see a good, gradual progression in damage as you level up and take perks. Let's say 200 damage from your usual shot and 500s from crit, then like 300s and 1000 or 1000 and 500s, etc. But at some point, when you got plenty of perks and implants, you start dealing some skyrocketing overbloated damage numbers, like 100, 200, sometimes even 500,000 damage from stealth or head criticals. Yes, it's cool and everything, but there is simply no practical difference between you landing 5000 or 500,000 critical damage, because most of enemies have around 1 or 2000 HP as max. Due to this, my character built into revolver head criticals basically have finished the last game boss in less than 20 seconds, and this felt weird as hell. With all being said, this doesn't make gameplay in overall bad by any means. All the variability mentioned before is still there, leading to a high gameplay replayability. A couple of not working perks and artifacts can happen in any game on release, that's normal, but it is not a couple. And it feels like many scenes were released just too much for numbers without proper testing, and a better perk balance and originality would make gameplay even better. Minus quarter point here. Enemy AI is sort of mixed bag. At the one hand, especially on hard and very hard difficulties, enemies are often fighting smart and aggressively, try to corner you when you're injured or shoot from covers when situation is not in favor for them. Throw grenades to blow you up to bits together with the car you're hiding behind. Snipers are not rushing to you and acting as an actual snipers, enemy netrunners hacking you, and in general enemies often using unique implant abilities, or just jump into the car and try to run you over, or shoot from it. The combat actually feels intense and differs between different enemy groups. At the other hand, AI can act weird as well. Sometimes enemies cannot figure out how to shoot you when you are in a plain sight. Do not stop hiding in cover when you are obviously flanking them. Sometimes throwing grenades at a wall in front of their face, so grenade expectedly bouncing back from it, damaging themselves. And the enemy netrunner's hacks being used on you is overheat in 90% of cases. Sometimes NCPD, Night City Police, just stand in the middle of fight between you and the bandit gang like nothing happens. And sometimes enemies can just instantly spot your position through the wall. The thing which was most irritating to me personally was the fact enemies in this game basically do not have any means of hacking detection, making full hacking character builds virtually invincible. Because you can jump between cameras and then use them to attack enemies with viruses, you can place yourself hundreds feet from enemy group, and they will simply unable to detect you no matter what, even if they have Netrunner too. It feels like there was a lot of actually good patterns laid up for combat AI, but this just wasn't properly tested and polished, which can lead to a combat encounters feeling the AI is somewhere from Elder Scrolls Oblivion. Minus half a point. The World AI. When you're not doing anything out of hand, the World AI is functioning really great. People walk, rush to work, rest, drink, sit in their phones, listening to street musicians, chat and argue. Everyone is doing something and the crowd feeling real. Same goes for the city traffic. It is fully organized and sometimes it is just bewitching to stay on some bridge above it and watch the endless chain of cars moving the streets. Issue appears when you start to do something which breaks this cycle. NPCs only have two fear patterns: run away and sitting down in panic, and often they do this highly irrationally, like the whole street around can start panicking after you just merely push someone, or you can throw a grenade in a crowd, and instead of running, people will sit down in fear, literally causing own death seconds after. If you leave a car at the middle of a road, drivers will simply stop in front of it, accumulating the line without even trying to ride around. And I guess I should not even mention the infamous police, which it seems have a war portals at their disposal, literally appearing out of nowhere behind your back when you break the law. To add here though, it was already demonstrated that a proper police chase AI actually do exist in the game, and that's likely a bug which will be fixed soon, or already fixed if you're watching this video months after. But at this moment, World's AI is absolutely not ready for stress situations and will act stupidly in such cases. There are some dedicated videos on YouTube showing comparison for such scenes in Cyberpunk 2077 and GTA 5, with the latter one being a hands-down winner. But point here, it is not fully correct to compare the game, which is a sim in a first turn, with an action RPG. Your gameplay actions are usually not involved in such stress situations, so many players most likely will not even notice them. But still, this AI part also needs a lot of improvements. Minus half point. The music and sounds are simply phenomenal, not less to say, and it's only twice as a good surprise when you learn that the music, which differs so much from a fantasy game Witcher 3 is, was made by the very much same composers. Music is always right at point, it matches the surroundings and situations in literally 100% of cases, instantly kicking in and tuning you into whatever's going on, be it a dramatic dialogue line or a hot-headed fight. Same goes for sounds, not just the quality of sounds is top-notch, but how many are there for everything in the game. The sounds of shooting for both you and some background gang fight, trash flying around, doors opening and countless other immersive sounds which make the city feel alive and gives unforgettable feeling of presence. The literally single weird sound I have noticed was that sneaking footstep sounds are identical to regular walking footsteps, but that's rather a nitpicking here and I am more than sure it will be fixed. The work on music and sounds in this game is simply outstanding and it's something I cannot explain more in words. You will understand it yourself just after an hour in the game. Plus half a point. Okay, so now I'm itching to use my whole expletives arsenal, but at the same time I still need to eat something and so my videos monetize, so... Woosa. UI and hotkeys on PC. So the M key opens the map and the P hotkey character skills. But what if you press any of them already being in any kind of menu? Yep, nothing. You can only cycle between the menus using 1 and 3 as sort of left-right keys. And why just not left and right then? Like you're playing on a controller and not a keyboard. Or there are some cool implants which can be additionally activated. And the hotkey for it is the middle mouse button, the very same middle mouse button which is used to throw grenades. And while you can reassign the key itself, you cannot split these two actions on a different hotkeys. And no, these implants do not even need your fingers to activate them during the actual gameplay, so like you have to choose between this operation and the grenade throw. Do you know what I bought my keyboard and mouse with so many keys with those fancy rainbow lights for? I bought them precisely to be able to assign everything I want for anything I want, and I just can't! Same as I can't assign 2 different type of grenades on 2 different hotkeys. If the robot appeared to back up my human enemies, I need to go to inventory, remove the frag grenade, put the EMP grenade in the same slot, exit the inventory, throw the EMP grenade, and then go back to inventory to put the frag grenade back. And yes, by the way, the interact key, it is F. Okay, let's put this aside and say that's an innovation and everything, but you know, I'm old-fashioned and I still want my E, and I cannot reassign this key at all. Needless to mention that Witcher 3 had pretty similar UI issues on release on PC, where the whole UI was basically made for consoles, which just do not have many keys, and that's understandable for them. But for PC it just doesn't make any sense, and Cyberpunk 2077 has few times more items to use compared to The Witcher, so this issue actually limits your combat capabilities, not to mention of constant butthurts. On top of that, the tail character stats screen, which shows things like damage per second, crit chance and power, resistances, attack speed, etc., simply doesn't show the total numbers correctly for most of stats. Let's say evasion. I have 20 reflexes points, where each point gives 1% of evasion, so it's base of 20%. But I also have passive 12% dodge implant and 5% passive dodge perk. So it is 37% in total, yet interface will still only show base 20% from attribute and that's it. No, that's not how you're making UI for a AAA game in 2020. Of course, this aspect is not as important as good storyline or world building in an RPG, and some players may not even pay attention to it, but it is an RPG with strong FPS elements, and it often can heavily damage your immersion feeling from the game, not even mentioning you cannot correctly see your character stats, so minus a whole solid point here. The modifications for weapons, clothes and cyberware have pretty low variability and feel really generic. At the one hand, it's not bad, there are still mods for items, not a new items and not a new brand artifacts like implants, but variety could be just bigger. And most importantly, many of weapon and clothing mods simply don't work. As for the cars, bikes and character visual customizations, that's something should be definitely existing in the world which follows style over substance principle. But you simply cannot change your car look after you bought it, cannot even paint it, and you can't change TV appearance after you made a character at all, not even a haircut. You cannot buy a new apartment, and your stash in apartment does not visually show the weapons you place there. All that's really weird, and probably once again has its roots in rushed release. Minus half a point. The trap of superficiality. To me, that's this game's actually most dangerous issue, which I realized was described countless times by countless players who made bad reviews, but separated and distributed into other, let's say, popular issues instead. It feels that the angles of how game points on important details is often shifted. It sometimes happens that character in main storyline spends like 10 minutes explaining you how to hack the terminal, but many most touch touching, dramatic or funny stories is something you can simply read in the emails of a laptop sitting on the coffee shop owner table, which like 95% of players will surely and completely miss. Same goes for some of the most non-linear, amazingly written side quests. From the beginning, game plunges you into huge mass of helpful UI, markers, pointers, minimap, GPS navigation, etc. But the very same map markers do not even hint you on any difference between major stories and kill, steal, bring generic contracts. As for the combat, there are tons of ways to go through it as mentioned, so many cool perks and various weapons, but if you're not playing the game on hard or very hard difficulties, you simply often can play a game very straightforwardly, without a need to improvise and so use most of these features. Game gives you tons of advices about various utility helpers, but it could be just so much better if a couple of modifications like Night City has many daunting secrets, many of which are hidden in the network, so make sure to check out those inconspicuous terminals every now and then. Or always look around, checking a target close gang with your face is not the best idea, chum. But Night City always has a way around, would exist. And that's it. A few simple messages which can give at least a hint on where and how major part of game secrets and replayability are hidden. I guess that's not fully a developer's responsibility for sure, but players too, because we are too used for games being casualized more and more with each year, telling us what to do and where to go, but still something in this part of the game with the dialogue structure and modifications, at least how it looks to me, simply slipped out at some point, and I truly hope it can be improved. Not made more casual, no, but handled how the game hints you on some things in different way. -quarter point. Cyberpunk 2077 release was a disaster, and that's not a secret to anyone. The greatest irony is a vastly majority, if not all the issues described above, could be simply non-existent by the release day should it be made a year after. But how it happened? It is important to understand that developer team most likely, if anyhow, has to do with it in the end. It is a marketing disaster which led to the one of the game release in total. 6 years of a complete radio silence. People are waiting, waiting and waiting. And then a huge chunk of information starts to appear. Many trailers, dozens of other promo videos like Night City wires, etc. And in a very short time span of just a few months. This created an avalanche effect of emotions from millions of people who were waiting for it, and created an illusory feeling it is ready for release, served and hot. So hard emotions, some of these people started setting death threats to developers. The feeling of utter impatience, even a hunger for a game release became so physically real that company became a hostage of the overhyped train it created. And in a fear of whatever may happen, more death threats, stocks falling or whatever else, they just said, damn it all, let's do this. And because of obviously not enough time spent for testing and finishing the game either, and as well because developers warned CEO's game is not ready but they didn't listen. But at this point, after the hype avalanche, after several statements that game will be released only when it's ready, millions of people already had so surreal expectation to this game that they expected it to have same huge world as GTA 6, same amount of dialogue lines as Skyrim 2, same amount of deep stories as Witcher 4 and same FPS polishing as Counter-Strike Global Offensive 3, and probably also curing cancer, improving potential all at the same time. These players would be disappointed by the game in any way no matter what, even if it would be released polished and finished, but in this state it turned out in a complete disaster. This is a complex issue related to marketing and CEO's mistake amidst such a dark irony that the game telling a story of how one big company messed up solution can lead to a disaster turned out into a real life story of one messed up solution which led to the very same, and the game being even more bugged on the consoles. At the one hand, the performance and stability on consoles is greatly improved just 2 weeks after the release when I'm making this video, but it's not the point here. To my personal opinion, a game like Cyberpunk 2077, where giant open world and the next generation graphics level is a core part of it, simply should not have been released on 6-year-old consoles in first turn, but it was company own decision, nobody pulled their tongue. Yet, led by the wish to satisfy more people and gain more profit, management decided to release game on PS4 and Xbox One as well, and now it's obvious they knew game is not ready for these consoles, and they only provided PC review keys to YouTubers and journalists, being not honest from the very beginning. Before I finish this part and deduct a whole point, because how many aspects of the game this rushed release touched, for this problem which game is yet only about to beat, I want to share a simple message to every CD Projekt Red developer. Chumbas will love you, and we know that while things turn out really messy without your warnings taken into consideration by the management, we know you did everything you could to deliver this game in the best state possible in current situation. I ask every single one of you to try not to stress out and remember that you have a huge, humble community and still a massive credit trust. Stay safe and sleep well. The game length. While it hurts me personally to say so, as I would prefer to have main questline at least twice as long easily, being as relatively short as it's now, that's how it makes much more sense story-wise. A candle that burns twice as bright. The story of V is just about that, climbing to the top of the world but betting everything on that. V's life path is a burst, explosion, and such ones can't be too long. The main quest walkthrough with some crucial related side quests which affect endings will take you from 20 to 30 hours, depending on a playstyle and difficulty. Side quests though in this game exist in a vast amount. Many of them can be as interesting as parts of the main storyline itself, and even the generic geeks are mostly different and have interesting background, and they can easily give you from 60 to 90 hours of gameplay, and so the total playtime can vary from like 40 hours if doing mostly main quests only, to more than 100 hours for completionist players. At the same time, due to multiple endings and truly non-linear outcomes in many quests, and especially multiple gameplay ways to go through each mission and fight, Cyberpunk 2077 provides a somewhat superficially unobvious, because this may be almost completely omitted by the player who is rushing through the game, which is explained in previous part of the video, but actually well established, I would even say high tier replayability for multiple walkthroughs. This game gives you a true freedom to act differently in the game world, not just compensating for the shorter storyline and a smaller game world compared to a game like Witcher 3, but in the end giving really versatile replayability status. The game has a huge modding potential, with so huge multi-leveled world which still has so many empty buildings and floors, with so many NPCs and so vast arsenal of animations and items. Should be the decent modding tools provided to community, this game can easily become a modding paradise, a new Skyrim for modding. New voice quests, new armors, weapons and cars, new implants and character looks, new zones in the game, etc., which in return will keep its community active for many years. But before that, CDPR needs to fix a mess of bugs and unfinished features they left in the game on release. Okay, let's count. And we have 7 3/4 points out of 10 for Cyberpunk 2077. This game is one of the best I have played in my lifetime, yet at the same time with the technical state feeling an early beta, which can bedraggle its best features. Incredibly beautiful, amazingly written, fun and deep and greatly replayable. The storyline is a masterpiece which happens only once in a few years. It has yet many flaws at the same time. Problems with AI, physics, skills and item balance and improper working, and still a wagon of bugs. Yet, literally everything of this can be fixed, restored and improved, and the next few months will be decisive for the game. If CD Projekt Red will manage to overcome the release disaster and fix numerous bugs, improve the flawed aspects, and actually implement most of cut features, almost all points deducted can be nullified, with game becoming a true masterpiece all around. In the opposite case, it will remain a great game, but also greatly flawed product, unfinished and unpolished, which will turn many players off the company products in longer perspective. Only time will show. After all, remember how Witcher series started and where it went in the end. The difference between first and third game is simply unmeasurable. Hey, come on man, CDPR were just a bunch of nerds working for food back then, and Cyberpunk 2077 budget is over $100 million. True that. Yet the company also took a daring goal of working on a brand new project in still niche genre, and with all the numerous problems game has right now, it is a matter of fact that it already made a history. It is the biggest, most passionate cyberpunk video game ever made, with the presentation of cyberpunk world being literally a next generation which no game on the market can come even close right now. The open question is which history this game will make after, and only time will show it. Should you try it if you are a cyberpunk fan or like the genre description in the beginning of the video? Definitely and absolutely. It is an outstanding game which will totally explode your head. Should or not you do it now? That's a matter of perspective whether you mind too many minor issues and unfinished features or not. If you do, try it in a few months. As for myself, I will definitely make one more review in about a year or so and hope that game improvement will go a lucky road. Thanks for watching, Chumbas. This was the last video in 2020 and what a year it was. This channel keeps developing thanks to your support, your views and comments, Patreon pledges, critics and opinions. And I am glad I have you. Do not forget to click that notification button to not miss new videos and join our Discord to always be in touch. And if you want to support me directly, my video game store and Patreon links are down below in video description. Stay tuned, stay healthy and stay happy. Sinitar Gaming here, signing out.